right, hello everyone. This is Josh, also known as Yashu. You're just tuning into another episode of the TLOY Talks podcast. You can get this on all platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Buzzsprout, Patreon, and much more. And I'm definitely gonna get it started right here. So basically, we have an up and coming creative a documentarist, like in a sense too, to kind of pronounce it correctly, has studied at Humber for his degree in like broadcasting and film, has done like a lot of documentaries like The Refuge, Love the Sport, Red Balloons, the a very like a unique short film that dictates about like the idea of like happiness too and like within mental health. Is a director, filmmaker, key gripper, gaffer, much more too. So we have Zachariah Madge on the pod today. How are you doing today?
Hey, good. Thank you for having me.
I'm doing all right, man. And I've seen like some of your stuff too. So basically, with Free Red Balloons, it's actually very unique too. And like I love like the concept on like what you had. So basically, in the document in the short film, so basically there was like free red balloons, and like it would dictate like the idea of like happiness too. So free being like happy, two being content, one being unsure, unokay, and all that. And I love the color grading on that, which is like very like
Thank
interesting
you.
in a sense too. Like it was like kind of like black and white with the balloons like being like red, and like it showcased like a unique story on how to find like happiness and much more too. And I also loved the Refuge as well too, because like I know like it talks like a lot about like homelessness and everything else too, and like
Thank you.
we'll dive deep on more. And then Love the Sport, which talks about dragon boat racing, which like I saw like I think a couple days ago, and like I loved how you had like people from like different countries. Like you had focused on Canada first, and then you focused on the USA, and then you also focused on like international countries like Brazil, China. You talked about the origins. It's crazy to see and all that. And I mean, you're a man of all trades. Like I'm not gonna lie to you. Like after like communicating for like IG and all that, because I researched that you're a key gripper, a gaffer. You do like lighting. You do like the directing, the filmmaking, like director of photography. It's a lot of roles, so it's amazing.
Thank you. A little bit of everything. Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to get it like started. Actually, I want to get it started by the way too. So, where did you grow up, and what was it like growing up at that time?
Yeah. Growing up, I grew up in. I mean, I like to say the Pickering area. It's more. I mean, I live in Scarborough, but I don't like to claim Scarborough. So, grew up in that area. I mean, yeah, good upbringing. Good creative scene. Yeah.
Oh, nice. And I guess it was like a good experience, like growing up in that area, right?
Oh yeah. No, great upbringing.
Yeah, man. And was the area big? Like I know with like Pickering too. Like I know they have like Boy Wonder and like a lot of other people like Sean Mendes. Like I know
Mhm.
there's like a lot of great community areas like the Pickering Town Center, like the City Hall. I know there's like a lot of schools like St. Mary's and I think Pickering High too. So I guess was it big within the music and creative scenes growing up there, or was it just community wise at the time?
Yeah, I mean, I went to Mowat High School, which was a very arts-based high school. They focused a lot on the plays. They had their film programs there. I mean, yeah, you mentioned Shawn Mendes. Networked with people who knew Shawn Mendes
Okay.
back in the day, back when he was more of a Vine star.
Okay.
And I mean, yeah, I think that there's just so many creative people out there.
All right. That's great, man. And growing up, what were you like in a sense?
I mean, I was known as the Lego and the YouTube kid for a
All
while. I
right.
mean, more as a little a smaller kid. I was definitely into Lego, being creative that way, and then I moved my interest towards filmmaking. I had this little like Fisher Price
All
camera,
right.
something that you'd have at like 3 years old, and I'd
All
run
right.
around the house. Then my grandpa gave me this little I don't even know, just some small little camera.
Okay.
Um, moved upgrade to the iPod and the iPhone. Started making my YouTube vlogs that way. Zerm Productions back
Okay.
in middle school. Just the cringiest stuff you'd ever
Yeah.
seen in your
Yeah.
life.
No, I know
Yeah.
what you mean. 'Cause
Um,
I know with YouTube, like it created like an epitome of a lot of the creatives and a lot of people that had like various like different interests, cultures. You could like find like many genres of like YouTube and like many like styles. And like I know like at that time too, like was your era more so like the Ryan Higa like moments and like the
mhm.
Shane Dawson's and like all that sort of stuff too?
It's funny you mentioned Ryan Higo. I was actually just thinking about him right now. Yeah, that's definitely probably one of my bigger inspirations.
All
I
right.
did a lot of the sketch comedy, I
All right.
guess, moved into the vlogs a little bit
All right.
later. But it was just, I'd get my friends and we would make just these silly little videos, and they weren't good at all, but it was the start of my career in filmmaking, really.
Okay. Because I know like YouTube back then too, because I actually had a discussion with one other person on the pod, Lomemper, so basically on like how like the layout of like YouTube changed, because it went from being like DIY, do what you want,
Hmm.
like no rules, to you have to follow like a certain amount of content to not get like striked or to not lose like monetization like purposes and all that too. So like I know like it has like a lot of like changes from the start to now, but I think back then it used to be fun. Like I remember you used to do like a little profile thing. You have to add like your information,
Hmm.
like what you liked musically, all that sort of stuff too. And yeah, it was like kind of more fun that time.
Yeah, I mean, I was never like I only had 100 subscribers. It was not a big channel at all.
All right.
But like the people in my school knew it. People in my school would watch it, and it was just something just fun for me and my friends to do. I mean, I remember I don't know if this is getting ahead of your questions, but in middle school, I was writing the script for this like spy thriller, like John Wick, before I even knew
All
what
right.
John Wick was. Of this these like kid spies who their dog gets kidnapped by the bad guy and they have to get him back. And it turned into this whole thing that I would write for years. I would stay in the library after school for like an hour or two. I'd just be writing with my friends, and it was you could definitely see the progression into filmmaking.
All right. And as far as like the introduction to directing and videography, was that like that initial one, or were you like checking out like certain like content from then back then?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't really into, I guess, movies like I am now back then. It was definitely more the YouTube scene, definitely getting into the sketch comedies and that kind of stuff, and the writing the scripts.
Okay. And like as far as like films and like documentaries, what films documentaries were you like mainly watching at that time that made you like fell like in love with the craft and all that?
That's really hard to say. I mean, as a kid, I wasn't again like really into that stuff. I would watch, the Marvel and the Star Wars
All
and
right.
like the Lego Movie was a big one for me, being that Lego kid. But nothing like I'm watching now.
Okay. I know what you mean. And like I know you talked about like using like the Fisher Price camera and
Hmm.
like creating like videos and photos from your iPod and like everything else too. So like that moment, like around that time, was it like a fulfilling moment that you could take this as like a unique art form that you could take on like later on?
I mean, absolutely. I'm just such like a visual and creative thinker and learner that just to be able to get these ideas in my head and put them onto film in any medium, whether that's just moving my stuffed toys around the
All right.
house, or whether that's getting my friends, probably reluctantly, I'm sorry guys, to come out and to be my actors and to do these YouTube videos with me.
As far as like getting into it as a career, like how did you get into like filmmaking and like making documentaries as a career, and what was like that initial moment that you decided to take that seriously, like in that sense?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a dream since I was a little kid. I don't even remember when. I mean, my dad is a television editor. I guess that on a subconscious level probably started putting me towards that path. But just ever since I can remember, I always wanted to attend film school.
Okay.
And throughout high school, it would be all the drama classes and the comtech classes where you get to make the little films, the photography, and that's that was always my progression. That was always my goal, was to
All right.
attend film school.
All right, that's facts. And I know that you talked about like your dad being like a television like editor and all that too. So from honing in on that experience too, like what were like some things that you learned from him that you took away and like what you're like doing like right now and all that too? Like I know like with television editing you can do it like from like the news to the weather to sports and all that too. So I guess was it something that you kind of were like influenced by from what he was like doing in that sense?
I mean, the TV shows he made weren't really. It was this Christian TV show called The Living Truth was at least the job that I mainly
All
remember.
right.
But yeah, there'd be days I'd go with him to the office. Just sit down, watch what he does for the day. There's a couple of times that he put my name in the credits.
All right.
It was really cool to just see a film, to see a recording, whatever. I guess that's more closer to documentary than
Okay.
film, but to see it's come together into that final project.
Okay, that's facts. And like you also talked about like going to like film school like in that sense too with Humber College in broadcast and like film and all that too. So how was that experience? Like I know that we talked about it like a very like earlier on
Mhm.
before we recorded and all that. So
Yeah, I mean, the film and television production program at Humber, it was great. I mean, it was the hardest thing I've done for sure. It was a lot of stress. It was a lot of hard work, but it's just been so rewarding. I mean, I could talk throughout the years, throughout each year, the struggles, the challenges, the joys, the ups and downs. But it was so cool, I guess overall, to have an idea, to have a concept, and then to get the crew, the equipment, the means, the money into turning it into not just an idea, not just like a little YouTube video, but like an actual film.
okay, wow, that's facts, man. And as far as like like influences goes, like who are your influences like when it comes to like the work that you do and all that?
In terms of documentary, in terms of like film in general.
I'd say like both in a sense.
Okay, I mean, when I started film school, I wasn't thinking about documentary at all yet. That didn't come until second to third year. So I guess when I first entered film school, I wanted to be the Christopher Nolan, the big film broy, popular directors that everyone wants to be when they're young and going to film school.
Nice. And I guess with the filmmaking, like I guess like there were like certain ones that kind of had like that edge that you saw like that was like very like dope, like very like interesting in that sense.
Certain directors.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, I had this youth leader, Peter, who would, I would go over to his place. I'd hang out with his daughters. I'd hang out with my youth group, and we would just watch movies. We'd watch Fight Club. We'd watch Pacific Rim. We'd watch. I'm blanking on any other movie right
Yeah.
now, but it was such a good time to. I think that was again more that introduction into movies, and I can say, my own dad. That was a lot more of the Avengers and that stuff and. We watch more than just the Marvel stuff, but I'm
Okay.
again blanking on all the
Okay, yeah, no,
films.
I know what you mean, man. I want to get more onto like your first major project and all that too. So when
Mhm.
you first worked on your first like major project, like how did you approach it, and what was like that process like from like starting from scratch until like now?
Yeah, I mean, it started with an idea. First year film projects where you have to do everything from pre-production, production, post-production. You got one assistant for your 3-day shoot, 2-day shoot, and that's all you get for the whole time. So it was really you're on your own. And again, when I was 17, I was fresh out of high school. I
Okay.
wanted to be that, I wanted to kind of prove myself like
Okay.
this is my time. This is what I've been leading up to my whole life. So I had this really ambitious project. It was 3 red balloons, this black and white film with 3 colored balloons over the actors' heads, the characters' heads, representing their mental health. And it was an ambitious project for sure. I mean, I think it was 5 cast members, 2 days. I think it was $500 or $600 of my own money, which at that time, was a fair bit for me. And I mean, it was the most stressful time in my life. I won't
Yeah.
lie. It was so incredibly challenging to that pre-production especially to get everything going, but it was also like when I remember going on a walk one night and getting my first email, the actor that actually reached out to me to be in the film, and it was just such a like I'm starting my career moment.
Yeah.
Like this is happening, this is real.
Yeah. Oh, that's facts, man. And what I liked about it too, because it started off like in the office scene too, where they're working and then they speak with the
Mhm.
manager, and then the balloon popped like when they found out that they were like fired and all that. And then when they came out of the office too, they came home, like they noticed like there was like a different change. Like it led to like one balloon, and then it led to the idea of depression. And then when he like spoke with the other person with the other balloon that provided that balloon, like it kind of brought like a sense of hope in that sense too. So I guess was that something you were like trying to like capture in that?
Yeah, I mean, it really starts off with this happy-go-lucky character. Nothing can really bring him down in life. His coworker, the other woman with him, he gets fired by his grumpy old one balloon boss, who is actually Peter, the guy I was
Yeah.
telling you about, who would watch movies. And he starts going on this spiral. He finds out his girlfriend's cheating on him, which is really funny because during that time it was COVID still. So the school would not let any actors kiss. So to show them cheating, I would have them passionately hug, and that
Alright.
was them cheating. And I don't know. Some people realize, some people don't, that instead of the 3 balloons, they had 5 each
Alright.
during that scene. To kind of represent that euphoria of the cheating. Yeah, and when he goes down to one balloon, he takes some more balloons out of his pockets and he artificially fills them. I remember Scott, the actor who played Jake in that movie. He was referring to it as like happiness is a drug that you're putting on this face, you're putting on this mask, you're drugging yourself up to go into this social interaction to hide that depression.
Yeah, that's facts. No, like, it's like very interesting to, like kind of like a little bit of the backstory on that and like the ideas that could have like worked in that sense too and faceted with your skill set.
Hmm.
So what are your creative approaches when you deal with like a film project? So there's like, it's kind of like a double-edged question too, because like usually there'll be like day in the life process too. So to speak more on it, like generally, so what would that be like for you?
Yeah, I mean, especially in film school, the projects were very. It was a little bit easier in that sense, I guess, that you had tasks that you had to do, like you had assigned. I need to do this form and I need to do this sheet, and I would be doing. I remember for my second year film, second year, second semester, where I started. I would have been gaffer on that project. Doing research on different films and different like the cinematography in the different films in order to kind of study the lighting setups in those films and then be able to recreate that in our own film.
Oh, nice. And like I guess like it's like a day by day, like it's like different like day by day. So like with like key grips, like they're focusing like more like on one task. With gaffers, it's like another one too. With locations, it's another
Hmm.
one. So like it could change like from time to time.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, every day is different. Every day um, brings a new challenge to overcome, and it's just. I mean, that's the fun of it. I think is I can never do. I told myself I can never do a desk job. I can never do a 9 to 5 where I'm doing the same thing every day. It needs to be on my feet and moving something new every day.
Okay, that's facts.
Yeah.
And like two of your documentaries that I think you've had like a lot of like love for, like the
Hmm.
Refuge, which like that's like the main one that you've worked on, and then also like the love of the sports. So how did those come about, and like what inspired you to work on those like documentaries and like the experiences beyond it?
Yeah, I mean, I can speak on love of the sport first, I guess. I think that would have been a pre-film school project. I remember just having a dream one night, actually, that I created this OC1 documentary. For those not in the Dragon Boat, that's, Outrigger 1. And I woke up and I thought this was still during COVID, this was still during lockdown. And I figured I'm doing nothing else. Why not make this documentary? I have no experience with documentaries before this. I barely watched any. I've watched maybe two or three in my whole life. But, I started interviewing just my friends, my friend from Philadelphia who dragon boats, my own teammates, my own coach. And, I thought this was kind of this big thing when I got my coach, who was also the president of Dragon Boat Canada. I think he still is. And then I'm doing one interview with this guy from New York, and we're setting it up. And at that point, I got a lot of interviews. I'm kind of tired. Like it was going to be later at night. I'm like, you know what? I'm not sure if I really want to do this, but it's already set up. We might as well just go through with the interview. And he just gives such a great interview, such a unique perspective into Dragon Boat, especially the history of Dragon Boat. And we're talking after the interview. He says, are you looking for a producer? And I said, absolutely, I am. And Matthew, he comes on. He was just such a great producer to work with. This project just blew up into so much more than I could have imagined. I talked to people from Bahrain, from Australia, from Hong Kong,
Brazil,
Brazil, yeah,
yeah.
just all across the world. And it was just such a cool project that it's a sport that everybody loves, regardless of culture, regardless of upbringing. Um, so many people in the interview, I don't know if I kept a lot of it, but described it as the ultimate team sport, and it really is the ultimate team sport. And it's just such a love that people have for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess you've done that like since you were like a kid and all that too with the Dragon Boat
Mhm.
thing. So how was that experience like, and was it something that kind of helped you like in certain ways, like just like in personal growth and all that?
I mean, yeah, my mom, she grew up dragon boating for I think my whole life, and I joined my high school team. Honestly, wasn't really a big fan of it at first because I was really into it, but I a lot of the people I was with weren't as I guess invested. But I remember joining. I was put on a different boat. One of the older kids in the high school that really took this seriously, and I realized just how fun it was at that time. And I joined the Pickering Dragon Boat Club, and we were supposed to go to race in France for the Club Crew World Championship in 2020. I'm sure you can all assume what happened with that one, but it was just such a great time in my life, such a pivotal point. Not only in physical growth, but yeah, just the team and the camaraderie and just such an amazing sport.
It's facts, man. And to speak more on the Refuge, so like how did that like come about as well too?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been volunteering at the Refuge with my dad since I was about 7 years old, cooking the Friday night dinner. So I've grown up around there. And in my second year of film school, when we had the opportunity to pitch these documentaries, at first I wasn't going to pitch actually. I think it was about 2 days before I was talking to some of my classmates, and I'm thinking, you know what? Why not? I might as well just pitch. Like, what could it hurt? So I put together this pitch, and to my shock, it was a voting system in the school, and I was one of I think four directors in my class chosen, and it was really cool. It was kind of funny. I was running late that day, so I find my friend texts me on the bus. You got selected. It was just such a cool feeling. And people were coming to me, and we got crewed up. And that was the first time that I was the director of a team. Yeah, I mean, this was my first like big documentary. It had a budget, it had a crew. It was my first time to really shine in that field.
Okay. And I want to talk more about your shirt for a bit too.
Yes.
So tell me more about that.
Yes, this the shirt says broken crayon still color. It just means that people who were dealt a bad hand in life, people who ended up homeless or on the streets or at risk for any reason, whether that be abuse at home, whether that be drug addiction or neglect, or sexual abuse for a lot of people. Just because someone ends up on the street doesn't mean, I guess, they don't have value. They do. They are, broken crayons can still bring color into this world, and people who happen to be in that situation, they still bring color into this world. They are still, yeah.
Yeah, like they have like a uniqueness and all that too. No, I
Hmm.
definitely agree too. And I mean, to even like speak more like even like in Toronto too. Like I know with the homelessness crisis in
Hmm.
Toronto, like I know it's like a major like issue too. So I guess like, do you feel like there should be like more shelters and more places for like the homeless to like kind of take refuge and kind of hone in out within like community services like with job training programs and all that sort of stuff too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, not associated at all, but there's this project called Tiny Tiny Homes that I've seen a lot on social media. And it's this man trying to create these, small little trailer homes for homeless people. Because, if you're watching this when we're filming in February 2020, we just came off a brutal winter. So much snow, it was so cold. And nobody deserves to be out in the cold like that. Everybody deserves a home. Everybody deserves a chance for food, for shelter, for just the privilege of a hot shower that we take for granted. But for some people, a hot shower is just, it makes their day. It changes their day.
That's facts, man. And to speak more on the overall reaction from others, like when you released like the content that you had, so like with like the short film, Free Red Balloons, and then the Refuge, and like Love the Sports. So like, what were like people's like overall reactions like when they saw it?
Yeah, for Three Red Balloons, that was our first year project. It was our personal media projects of the PMP, and it really wasn't. I mean, at the time, I thought this was like the make or break. Like, I'm going to be Spielberg after this. No, I'm not. That project meant nothing in the grand scheme of things, in the grand scheme of the program. Um, so I guess the reaction for that wasn't quite as much. But for love of the sport, I know it really reached a lot of people in the Dragon Boat community internationally, and I mean, a lot of people really seem to enjoy that. And with the Refuge, I mean, we had the privilege to premiere at the Hot Docs Cinema downtown as a part of Humber, and it was so cool to have a theater of people coming in and watching your film on the big screen. It was a surreal experience, and I got a lot of positive feedback. I'm currently in the process of turning I mean, it's a 9-minute short right now. I'm currently turning it into, an hour and a half, something like that, feature documentary with more interviews that we had to cut because of time, more resources, just a lot more.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting too because in one part of the Refuge, you've actually did like a little bit of an interview with the mayor of like Osher too, who
Mhm.
talked about like his experience too. So how was it like like even like interacting with him in that sense?
I mean, that was incredible. I mean, I've been able to meet him before at other Refuge fundraisers events, and I was briefly familiar with his story, of being addicted to drugs, being addicted to alcohol, being on the streets. But the fact that he turns himself a lot around. There's a line in the doc, I think it's in the original, that I'm a prime example that hopelessness can become very hopeful with the right group of people around you, or something along those lines. The fact that he was in that situation, but he was able to turn his life around, and now he's leading the great city of Oshawa, and that he understands that perspective of drug addiction and mental health and homelessness, and he's really making an effort into to fixing that in the city.
I definitely agree, and it's amazing to see too because there were like others that were like dealt like in that same position too. Like even when they were like in office too, and some like either can't handle it or like either just tend to like hide away from it. But with him being like vulnerable, like speaking more on it, like I definitely like kind of respect him more.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so it's amazing to see and all that, and you talked about like like cutting time like based on like the amount of information and like
Hmm.
stuff that you research. So how did you research and gather like the information for like your films and like your documentaries in that sense?
Yeah, I mean, the research for this doc was just incredible. I think our just for the 9 minute short, our binder was about 400 pages. I had just a great producer, Natalia, who was just the hardest worker, so good at what she does. And her and I, we worked. I mean, it was our other crew as well that worked with us, but it was Natalia and I especially. We would sit down and we researched the causes of homelessness and the stereotypes and the hurtful stigmas that go with it, and how to not only the causes of homelessness, but also just kind of how to interact and to talk with this community in order not to re-victimize them or to bring up past traumas that might end up hurting them if you bring it up, which was a very important part in working with the Refuge as well. We worked very closely with them. I'm still working with them closely now as I make this feature to ensure that the health and safety of the youth is the number one priority.
Yeah, that's facts. And I know that you tend to have like a lot of like central themes like and messages that you have like for your work, whether it's through like homelessness, like learning about the idea of like mental health, addiction, whether it's through like different sports and all that too. So like usually are these like the central themes that you're trying to convey for your work, or do you have like other main ones that you tend to like highlight and like focus on as well?
Yeah, I mean, for love of the sport, I would say the main central theme was, coming together as a dragon boat community, regardless of, anything race, religion, gender, age, anything of that. It's you're one person in the boat, you're one team. You win together, you lose together. That was, I'd say, for love of the sport. For Three Red Balloons, it was definitely mental health. I think that I get that I hit that a little on the nose. Um, prioritizing mental health, and at the end when the coworker, sacrificed her balloon. It was, sacrificing happiness or like reaching out and helping when someone needs help.
Yeah.
And with the refuge especially, there's a central theme of Jesus Christ's love and kindness,
Yeah.
which is the mission statement of the refuge is to show Jesus Christ's love and kindness through the youth of their community through practical and compassionate means of intervention and prevention. I've heard that
Yeah.
so many times through the edit, through watching it.
Yeah.
But that was definitely the central theme of not only the doc but the refuge organization as a whole.
That's facts, man. And I know like as well too, there's like usually like a lot of like ethical concerns too, like even with the idea of religion too, because like not a lot of people are like very religious, like
Hmm.
even in terms of Christianity, and then also the idea of communicating too, because like some people will have like altered like states of mind too, whether it's through addiction, whether it's through like other stuff too. So did you ever had like any ethical concerns that you had to navigate while filming like these like documentaries and films?
I wouldn't say so. I mean, I'm very much Christian myself, and I don't shy away from that stuff. And I know the refuge doesn't either. I know that if you come to the refuge, regardless if you are Christian, atheist, Muslim, Jewish, Wiccan, whatever, if you are sober, if you're still very much dependent on drugs, they're going to accept you and love you, really just as Jesus would in their doors.
That's facts. And I know there's like a lot of like younger people like in the city too that are like even like showcasing it, whether it's in Toronto or like in Ottawa and other parts too. So I don't know if you know like Reed like in the street by any chance, who like speaks of like a lot of like the homeless people like in Toronto and all that. Like he
I think I've seen that. Yeah.
yeah, so I like even like seeing like stuff like that too. Do you feel that's like an interesting outlook, or like even with like soft white underbelly too? Do you think that's like kind of like an interesting like outlook on how to see where like homelessness is like coming from, and like the ideas, like backgrounds, and then figuring out like resources and everything else too?
Yeah, I mean, I think talking to people, I guess more of those social media interviews of homeless people on social media, it's really good for people to share their stories. I find a lot of you just have to be careful, really. I think when you do those interviews, I've watched many documentaries on homelessness, on homeless youth specifically, and I mean, some of them are really well done. Some of them were well researched, well produced, well, well, in, well conducted interviews. But a lot of them, there's one called I think it's Homeless Kids of Orange County or something along those lines, by Nancy Pelosi's daughter, and it was just done in such a exploitatory way
All right.
where, I mean, there's just no respect for the privacy or the mental health, where to the point where, one of the kids even said at one point, that's a stupid question that you just asked. So I think just, in those sense, it's really good, but you just have to be careful in those interviews in order to ensure the mental health and the
Yeah.
safety of those youth that you're, or the people that you're interviewing.
It's just like knowing like how to humanize too, like how
Hmm.
knowing how to relate to, because like even with the shirt too, because like I think it's like kind of like a way to like humanize people and all that too, and I do want to like kind of see that more like within these communities too, because I know even like with homelessness too, like it's even like reaching like Belleville nowadays too, because I know Belleville they had like a drug epidemic like in their downtown area too, so like I know like they're trying to like improve on that too, and I actually used to go to school like in Oshawa by the way, and
Oh, nice.
so basically, like I think like the homelessness like around there has sort of like improved too, like just in like certain aspects too. So like I know it might be like more rampant in Toronto too, but like it's like more so within the idea of like accessibility and all that too. So
Yeah. I mean, I've done, for the extended documentary, I did some interviews with some social workers, and they were saying how, yeah, there's really hubs for homelessness, whether that's in Peterborough, whether that's in Toronto or Oshawa, because that's mostly where the resources are for those people, and that's where a lot of them tend to, I guess, congregate and make their communities.
that's facts. And from working on your first project until now, do you feel like you've grown as a creative within like documentary making and like filmmaking as well, and that you've like came like a long way in that sense?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm still actively growing right now, whether that's, in the way that I approach making my documentaries or just as a documentary filmmaker as a whole. I mean, I mentioned the stress that I was going through for Three Red Balloons. I was definitely better for the Refuge, but I mean, my crew can attest that. I mean, I was 18. I was the youngest person in my crew, and I was the head. This was the first time leading a crew, and there was times that I was a bit in over my head, and there was times that I'm so thankful to have the crew that I had, to have Kenneth, who was just such a talented DP, to have Natalia, who was just the hardest working producer I've ever worked with, to have Talha and to have Ryan and to have Miriam on my crew as well. They were just outstanding in what they contributed to the film.
How has filmmaking impacted your own understanding of the subject matters you've dealt with in regards to your work?
Yeah, I mean, especially with homelessness, I've learned just so much through this film, and I'm continuing to learn and to grow, not only as a filmmaker, but just as a person and a man in the way that I approach these things.
Okay. And did you take like any like valuable like lessons that you've learned from the process?
Lessons that I've learned. Um, Conduct interviews as a whole, whether that's for Dragon, but whether that's for homelessness, the way that I approach my interviews has definitely changed from, I guess, going at it and just
Okay.
writing a list of questions to really doing in-depth research and putting time and effort and research into my questions.
Yeah. No, that's facts, man. I know there's like some like projects and like clients that some people like don't really like take on like in that sense too. So are there like certain ones that you would never take on, like in your opinion, just like with like values and such?
Um, I mean, I definitely am more interested in the Christian documentary scene. I think that's such a lacking field right now, and there's some really good ones out there. Um, but I think that really it just comes down to passion for me.
All right.
I know that, I mean, as a documentarian, I have people all the time giving me suggestions. Um, but really, I want to do what I'm passionate about, because if I wasn't as passionate as I am about the Refuge or love the sports, I wouldn't have put 10% of the effort that I did into it. And I feel like if I'm just doing a project for, because it's relevant or because, like, okay, I guess I could do this, it's just going to be something that's not worth my time, something that doesn't reflect my passion or my skills as a filmmaker.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's facts. And I know with the Toronto GTA creative scene, like I know there's like a lot of like people like within the scene that have like different like avenues like with film, music, and much more. So how do you feel about that? And do you feel that there should be some changes in the direction of where the scene should go, or do you feel like it's like fine the way it is?
I mean, in film school, we had a class of, I think our graduating class was around 75. We started with, even more than that. And it's just such a great opportunity to net. I mean, networking was one of the best things I got out of film school, out of my 3 years there, because not only are you working with these people and you see who it shines, who outstands in their field, but you also get to build personal connections and personal relationships with these people. But I mean, yeah, I think the creative scene is really good there, and in terms of the city, I mean, I think it's great. I think the Toronto documentary scene as well is so well versed. It's so I mean, we live in the most multicultural city in the world where I mean, I'm under the impression that there are so many people out there, almost everyone, who has some story worth telling, and it's just a matter of finding those people and telling those stories. And I think that Toronto is one of the best places in the world for that.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree too. Like I know with the cultures and the different entities and like different interests too. Like it's like explicated like in all ways too. So it is like definitely like amazing to see, and I've seen it like in all aspects, like within music, film, comedy, much more
Mhm.
too. Like it has like amazing, a lot of like amazing things to offer, and I gotta give hats to that and all that either way. So
Yeah.
I know that we've talked about like mental health, like in regards to like various like formats with, love the sport and even with the refuge too. But personally, how do you deal with your mental health as a person in your position? Like with like the amount of stuff you have going on, do you feel like it's like very overwhelming, or do you try to mitigate it as much as possible?
It can definitely be overwhelming. I mean, I've talked, I'm pretty open with the fact that, especially in the beginning of my film school, that wasn't something that I was very skilled in, I guess. That's something that I've been working on. And I think it really comes down to when I work on a project, I make it really my whole life, 110%. That's all I think about. There is times that I woke up dreaming of doing paperwork for these projects. I woke up dreaming about, texting actors and subjects for these films. So I think it really comes down to preserving my mental health, taking that time away and I mean, really just giving it to God fully and letting him take control over that.
Yeah, that's definitely like amazing to hear, like in that sense too. And it works out like either way, depending on your interests, your values, and much more too.
Mhm.
And there's like a lot of people that want to be like in your footsteps and all that too. So, like, what would be some great advice that you would like to give for any aspiring like filmmakers or directors or anyone that wants to get into your scene, like in that sense?
I mean, a lot of people, a lot of directors out there are going to tell you, just pick up a camera and just go. Um, I think that's really good. I think that's good advice, but I think that to really sit down and focus on the pre-production as well, if you just want to get your foot in the door, see if you like it, then yes, I would say, pick up a camera and go shoot something on the weekend with your friends. But if you want to make like a proper film, something that you're really passionate about, sit down, take the time, do the research, do the paperwork, do the everything that comes with it, whether that's documentary or whether that's a feature length film where you're doing locations and you're doing you know everything that goes with that. Yeah,
That's good. And we just had like some of these like last questions for a bit too. So, do you ever have any regrets in your life overall, or do you like regret nothing?
you know what? I try not to live in regret too much. Yeah, I just try to live, to learn, to grow where I have not always been my best, but just to continuously become a better version of myself.
Okay. And as far as like 2025, like I know we're heading to March right now. So
Mhm.
do you have any plans in terms of any new projects, anything creative in that sense too?
Yeah, I mean, as I've been talking about throughout this podcast, I'm working on the feature length for. I mean, I've been calling it the Refuge. I'm changing the name. I guess this is the first time I'm saying this like publicly. To Oshawa's Refuge is going to be the new name of the film. I guess I can't change now. Guess we're stuck
Yeah.
with that name. But gonna work on that. I mean, just a Google Doc full of ideas, full of I have some feasible ideas, some big ideas, some small ideas, some, ideas that I don't think are really going to work, but I just want to write them down still, that day that I look at it and I just have that change of perspective, that change of growth in my life. So yeah, I mean, to answer your question, I do have some other projects, but I think I'm going to keep a few of them, my cards close to my chest.
Okay. And do you have any closing remarks you'd like to say?
I don't think so. I mean, thank you so much for bringing me on this podcast. I really appreciate the time and to be able to talk about all my films.
Yeah. It's great to know, and it's like a pleasure having Zachariah, like learning to like know more about you, like knowing your roots, like knowing your interests too, and like I do definitely want to recommend like all three of your stuff, like to like a lot of people that are like watching right now. Definitely check it out on Zachariah's YouTube channel. It's accessible like everywhere you go, so definitely give it like a like, a comment, a subscribe, like either way too. So and yeah, I wish like nothing but the best for you, brother. And
Thank
I
you so
hope
much.
we'll definitely have you back on like for the new project, for everything else too, and we'll keep in touch. Either way, no.
I'd appreciate that. Thank
Yeah,
you.
man.
Thank you.
Yo, so this is Josh, also known as Yashu, another episode of the TLOY Talks podcast with Zachariah Madge. You can get this on all platforms: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Buzzsprout, Patreon, much more on Patreon. There's like different tiers for different like people. So basically, any tier, like for the highest tier, you can get like a lot of like, exclusive content too. So definitely check that out too. Definitely check out like Zachariah's like content on YouTube. A lot of like amazing stuff from there. And yeah, so this is Josh, also known as Yashu with Zachariah Madge, signing off.
Thank you.